So today let's do some techniques using our Stampin' Write markers. Let's get started. We're going to use the Penciled Pear stamp set, and this stamp set is one that I had to have in the 2024-25 annual catalog. I collect pears, and so this of course needed to be in my stamp kit. And I love this large one, but I'm particularly fond of this set of 4 as well. And this is one of our sketched stamps, and meaning that all of these little sketching lines are just the drawing lines that the artist created. And so we are going to use this one. We're going to use just a little note, and I think I'm also going to bring in the blossom. So we're going to work just with one of our dies. So I've already cut it here, and it is the Something Fancy dies, and these dies are great. So anytime that I can get a set of nested dies that are simple shapes, that will, and nesting meaning that there's a smaller one, then a larger one, then a larger one. So they nest inside one another. And I'm going for the largest. I've cut out the largest one here because I think that is going to fit our pears. And so we're going to come back to this again, but I've cut 2 just in case I need to, but I think maybe I might be okay just with 1. So when you have a stamp like this, most often what you're going to do is you're just going to stamp it into your ink pad, and whatever color ink you have is the color that you're going to get on your paper. But I want to create a multicolored image to start with. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our stamp upside down, and I've pulled in quite a selection of our Stampin' Write markers. So we have some lighter colors into pink, then we have our greens. So you know how when a pear is ripening, it gets sort of that light pinky peachy kind of color. So that's why I've pulled in these colors. So we're going to start with our lighter colors first, and we're going to color right onto the stamp. And so if we look at the stamp, what we have, the artist has already done for us some of the shading. So where we see the white here on the stamp is probably where that light color is going to be. So we could stamp it onto colored paper if we wanted, but I want to give a hint of that color in where some of those sketch lines are. So I'm going to start with my lightest, which is my Petal Pink. And there's 2 sides to your Stampin' Write markers. There's a side that has a thick line, and you can see the brush tip here. And then there's a side that has a narrower line, and it's a 0.5 bullet tip, which is great for writing. But we're going to be using all of the brush tips today. So I'm first of all going to take it, you always want to use it when you're coloring onto your markers on its side. So I'm just going to go in and just put some color right sort of into that middle area where we think there's going to be white. So I've gone all the way around that, and hopefully you can see. Now I'm going to put a little, just for a little variation, I'm also going to put in a little bit of our peach pie. And I'm just sort of dabbing that in a couple different places. I'm not going all over like I did with the Petal Pink. And let's just put in a tiny little bit of pink. So just a tiny bit of pink in a couple different places. So I am just dabbing this on here. I'm not coloring hard. I don't want to ruin the tip of my marker. And now we're going to go in for our colors. And this Wild Wheat is almost a greeny kind of yellow. And so it's perfect for our pears. So I am going to go everywhere, and it might be a little bit hard for you to see, but I am going to color everywhere that I haven't yet colored. So I'm going to add a lot of that Wild Wheat all the way around. And your ink is just going to start to blend. It's going to sit sort of on top of each other right now, but we will get it to blend a little bit. Okay, so I've got all of my Wild Wheat everywhere. And again, I'm just using that tip, and I think maybe we might just go for our Old Olive. So Old Olive here, I'm going to do the stem itself, and then I'm going to come down, and on the bottom of our pears, there's shadow. So you can see where that shadow is. I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of shadow down here. Okay, so now what we want to do is we need to huff on this. If I were to stamp it right now, it's already dried on top of that rubber. So I have to huff on it with my breath and just re-moisten that color. So you're not going to be able to see me do it, but you'll hear me do it. So I'm just going to give a huff all over the stamp, and then we're going to stamp it on our paper. And we are going to have some harder lines here, and that's okay. We're just going for a different look, a different variety. So I'm going to give it a couple huffs. And again, we want to just do that. We want to moisten it. I'm going to do it again, but we just want to moisten. Please do not spit on it. You just go ahead and moisten it. So I'm going to stamp that down right now. And what we should have is a variety of colors. Now we may have some more solid lines than others, but we're doing not too bad. So you can see how we have our darker along the bottom. We have our wild wheat, and then we have our inner colors, which is the lighter colors. So I'm actually quite happy with that. So now we are going to do our words the same, but we are going to just pick out some words and do them different colors. So this is just a little note. So I want to highlight note, and I want to highlight the two lines as well. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it in the, I think maybe we'll do it in the wild wheat. So it's just going to be just a little note. So here, because we have the ability just to color what we want to color, this is called omission stamping. So just a little is going to be in wild wheat, and we're going to do the exact same thing as we did before. We're going to color it just on its side. And then I think maybe I was going to do Mossy Meadow. I think I'm going to do Mossy Meadow. Even though I don't have Mossy Meadow in here, I am going to put Mossy Meadow right here. And we will have a much darker, just a little note with those lines. Now, again, we do just need to huff on that. And I'm hoping that you can hear me do that. And then I'm going to try and get it straight on here. Okay, so just a little note. And now let's pull in our blossom, and we're going to do our blossom as well. So this is how you can get multicolored images without really doing too much work. This is very, very simple to do. I'm going to put our petal pink everywhere. Maybe go in with a little bit of, this is art, okay? So there's no right and there's no wrong. You are going to have some great designs. I'm going to use some old olive here for the leaves. And so here you just need to sort of take care that you're coloring in the leaves and the branches. I'm going to do those. And I'm just going to stamp a little bit right onto the side of here. So I'm just going to look here. And I have my leaf up there. So if you can go back and forth looking at the leaf and looking at the flower, you're good. Okay, and I'm just going to huff that again. Now what I'm going to do for this one instead, let me just grab my grid sheet, is I'm going to take my grid sheet and I'm going to stamp off one time. So it's going to be really, really light. I'm going to huff on it, stamp it off lightly, and then I'm going to stamp again. Okay, so just I'm going to have a very, very light impression on here. So you can see I have hardly any petal pink, and I can see that I could have colored that a little further down, but that's okay. I'm happy with that. So now let's make the rest of the card. So I'm going to pull in my eyelet embossing folder and a piece of petal pink so that it will coordinate with the pink on the inside and the little blossom. And I've done that and just cut myself a little piece of that. I have a piece of old olive that I have folded, so it's just a regular card base cut on the long edge. And I'm going to have my piece of, I'm actually going to turn it so that I have a landscape orientation. And then I'm going to put my eyelet there. And then I've cut myself one more exactly the same size here. But what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to cut it in half. And you don't have to be especially straight, so you don't have to pull out your trimmer to do this. And I'm going to mount this so that it frames the outside of our white. So let's go ahead and do that. Pull in my silicone craft sheet. And whenever you are using your liquid glue and have the potential of that liquid glue falling out onto your piece of paper, you want to just work on your craft sheet. So I'm going to go all to the edges, and I'm just going to lay that down. I'm looking for the same amount of space all the way around there and have it line up perfectly on the edges. So there's that one. And we'll do the same thing over here. So you want to make sure you don't put any glue right where we want it to go, where we want to see the edge, rather. Okay, and then just line that one up as well. Okay, so then we've created an outline onto our piece of white, and I can see that I don't really want to see that green right there, so I'm going to go ahead and just trim that off just a tiny little bit, okay? And it's pretty much gone there. Okay, so let's put this together now. So I'm going to glue this down. Oh, I have one more step I want to do. So on this guy here, what I want to do is just put a piece of ribbon in the same color. So I've pulled in, there's a double pack of petal pink and white diagonal trim. And what's great about this is that it has a really nice diagonal line inside. So I've cut myself a piece of the petal pink, which is the exact same color. That's a little longer than my embossed one. And I can adhere this in a bunch of different ways. So I'm today going to take my seal, and this is my Seal Plus, use it on my silicone craft sheet. And I'm just going to put a little bit of Seal Plus here on the end. Okay, on the end. And then I'm going to line this up in the middle. I'd like it in the middle as much as possible. Now your Seal Plus is a nice, strong adhesive. So it's not one that I recommend everybody get right away, but if you do 3D items and if you do something like this, it's a great adhesive to have. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue that down using my liquid glue. So the seal will, where I have the seal there, it will adhere as well. Give myself a fair bit and make sure that I'm on the folded edge here, and I'm going to put down my piece, glue that down. This is going to go on with my Stampin' Dimensionals. And just remove those off. Okay, and we're going to lay that down. So I could cover it, but I'm just going to have it peek over the edge a little bit. Put that right there. And then we're going to, I think maybe we're going to put our little note right over top. So in order to do that, what I want is to have some dimensionals along the bottom part, but none on the top where it is going to adhere. And I'm going to, when I say adhere, I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue there so that it can just stick right on there. And take your backings off. Now I could have done the exact same thing to the just a little note and also put a border on that, but I sort of like it just like that. So now we have our card done. We're going to add some embellishments, and I'm going to use the iridescent foil gems. And I'm not going to use a lot of these. I just want to give a little bit of the idea. I'm going to pop one right in there, and maybe another one down here, just hiding it a tiny little bit, and then a smaller one up at the top so that we have it sort of surrounded. Actually, no, I think I'm gonna go right over here. So it's always a personal preference on where you put your dots. The card is pointing this way. I wanna pull the eye up here a little bit, so I'm gonna put 5 on this one and put it right there. So there's your card. And I want to show you another card that's perhaps just slightly simpler, but the exact same technique. So here we have a simpler card, but different orientation, really much the same thing, but we're not using dies, we're just using some rectangles. So if you don't have any dies that are in shapes like this, go ahead and just create a rectangle for yourself. Thanks very much for joining me. If you like this project, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you'd like free project ideas, head on over to my blog at designwithjo.ca and get yourself signed up for my email list. Thanks very much and have a great paper crafting day.